a tip, right? Whatever they say it is, and then they will go back and readjust it afterwards, and sometimes screw you over just where they get picked first or get the process sped up a little bit.
You're 100% right. They can do that because so a lot of times the tip is automatically built into the price because Instacart says the tip should be this much based on the percentage, a bunch of different things. And some people just leave it there. And then sometimes that tip adjusts because sometimes they add food or take food away.
Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond, and London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, we love you in Canada and Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south. You're the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful May the 26th, 2021. Round of the Deportes. Bonjour, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Well, Charlton, it's beautiful. We had our eyes on the nation's capital in Washington, D.C. today, Charlton, as Carrie Jean-Pierre became only the second woman in history to hold a press conference from the White House press room, Charlton, and only the second in over 30 years to have done so. Julie Smith did it under the previous Bush administration, the first Bush administration.
Yep.
So it was great today, Charlton, to see Black history happen all over again. As well as Kristen Clark, Charlton, was sworn in today as the first Black woman to be heading the DOJ's Civil Rights Division.
Wow.
Once again, I want to thank our frontline healthcare workers, our nurses, doctors, and first responders. They'll always be there to help everybody out, regardless of their rights.
They will always help everybody out. I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. When you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you, as well as a fleet of Cadillac cars also all around the world. Say Google or Alexa play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear Welcome to the Show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic. He'll do his thing from 3,000 miles away, and I really do appreciate the way things have grown with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Spotify. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Apple TV, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. But you better have a smart TV, or you'll be sitting there looking at a still picture. Man, I love pausing, Big C. That was some very good information you delivered. It's all fair in love and war. I love when things are progressing, and I hope we always progress on helping our veterans with our Veterans Crisis Hotline. They really are experienced helping veterans, and their loved ones can help Big C. Why should everybody care?
Well, Charlton, hopefully under this current administration, we'll get more people to pay attention to the plight of our veterans because he had children who served in the military, so he understands the plight of those military veterans, Charlton, when they come back home, how much of a support base that they need because of all the skeletons that stay in their closets, Charlton, that are hard to come out because people don't want to talk to them about their time at war. And that's the most troubling part to a lot of veterans, Charlton, is the time that they spent during war. And because they don't have that outlet, Charlton, we lose over 2,000 veterans a day to suicide.
Wow.
For other reasons also, because they're mentally, physically, and financially non-stable in society once they try to return.
Yep.
We give out the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number, Charlton. We need all Americans to understand what has happened to the plight of our veterans, pay more attention, and find ways to give them more help, other than just saying thank you for your service.
Very well said, Big C, and I think more people are finding ways. 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255, or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255 to get some veterans some help. Also, if you're online, simply go to veteranscrisisline.net, and you can definitely get some help for our veterans and their loved ones. Also very happy to be affiliated with Valley Homes Weekly TV on Dish TV, Direct TV, AT&T Uverse, TV 53, home of the San Francisco Giants, and the Say Hey Kid, as well as the home run king Barry Bonds. When you reach out to them, just tell them Big C sent you. Our goal is simple: recruit 10,000 real estate agents and brokers all over this great country to help put people back to work. Just like McDonald's does it, car dealerships are doing it, sports teams are doing it, watch TV and real estate work for you. 800-772 8624. If you're looking for opportunities in real estate, go to bigcsports.pacwm.com. Most of our loans are underwritten by Rocket Mortgage, the #1 lender in the country on the wholesale side. I also want to say thank you to Xfinity, Comcast TV, and Comcast Spotlight for presenting Big C Sports to the universe. Just like God said in Genesis 1:3, let there be light. Open your cell phones and say play. Big C Sports Podcast. You will see all of our apps pop up from all over the world. And I really do appreciate the way things have grown with Big C Sports. My goodness, Big C. You know, again, it's hot. I think I'm trying to sing. I'm always taking a shower, and I try to take cold showers for more than one reason, Big C. But I'm always singing, it's getting hot in here. I finally get to take off all my clothes, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charleston, hopefully when you're taking those showers, you can find that little thing called soap.
Yeah, maybe that's the missing ingredient. There's a thing called soap, and sometimes you run low on soap, but it's all fair in love and war. I do want to say, everybody take a shower, even if we're having a drought. You can even take a shower and some spit, if that makes sense to you. You know, Big C, that crisis hotline that you started us doing about 3 years now. I was watching an NBA basketball game last night as the Lakers was putting away the Phoenix Suns, Big C. And can you believe, the NBA, Big C, they flashed a mental health message as it scrolled across the TV during the game. A lot like our crisis hotline, it said text TEAM, TEAM, to 741-741 and talk to a specialist. Big C, you've been doing that for 3 years, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, there's thousands and thousands of Americans that do that care about the plight of our veterans as well as our everyday people in America. Mental issues is something that so many people, Charlton, try to avoid. But it's something that we all need to pay attention to because it's part of everyday life. Just like the sun going up and going down in the evening, Charlton.
Yeah, it really is. So I really appreciate NBA basketball and the NBA basketball universe for making sure that people can watch a game. And while you're watching the game, if you know nobody going through anything, pick up the phone and you can text or you can call and ask for help. Big C, I also want to say your message has been so popular. New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio, he even held a press conference to talk to people that are dealing with their own issues. Bill de Blasio, he called a press conference right after the NBA flashed a mental health hotline. And he called the press conference to tell the Atlanta Hawks' Trae Young to stop flopping in New York City. He also urged the New York Knicks to talk to Trae Young, Big C, and to teach him a lesson. And I guess all the monitors, they were listening to because they heard that same message, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I mean, the New York Knicks have a history of hatred amongst players around the league, Charlton. They always sought out a villain to point a finger at.
Yeah, but when's the last time you heard of a mayor of a major city telling people to take care of it, to rough them up, and don't pull that garbage at Madison Square Garden, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, you have to understand New York is a very passionate city about their sports team.
Yeah.
Regardless of which one is on the court, field, or the ice, Charlton.
Yep.
They understand sports. They're not fair weather people like in other states and cities.
Yeah, it's all fair level war. The NBA says mental crisis hotline. If you know anyone going under stress, pick up the phone and text this number. New York City Mayor, if you know anyone going through mental health, we're going to rough them up and teach them a lesson. They didn't come to New York City with that mental health garbage. It's all fair level war. Oh, man, it's all fair level war, Big C. I'm sure some of the people of Phoenix, they want to use that same Mayor de Blasio to come to the city of Phoenix and try to give them a pep talk, Big C, as LeBron James has never lost a first-round playoff series in the NBA basketball universe, Big C. The great LeBron James did his thing. But there was a loud roar last night coming out of the Valley of the Suns all the way to the Pacific Ocean, Big C. It was the great Anthony Davis acting like King Mufasa in Lion King. He was dropping 34 points, 10 rebounds, 7 assists. And King James, Big C, he dropped 23 points, had 9 assists. And then Schroeder also dropped in 24 points as the Lakers eclipsed the Phoenix Suns last night in the Valley of the Sun. And so many people, they would say, guaranteed they would lose. I guess sometimes guaranteed outworks the mouth they're coming out of, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I guess you really have to look at the last 5 minutes of the game when the officials decided to swallow the whistle and allow the Lakers to do whatever they wanted to do physically on the court to the Suns. And that's where the difference in the game was truly made, Charlton, by the officials being so silent about blowing whistles on fouls that the Lakers were making.
Yeah, I've heard that cry before, Big C. Sometimes if you're winning, the officials are doing great. If you're losing, the officials cost the team. They're the ones that were not out shooting baskets and dropping 34 points. It's all fair in love and war. The Lakers did what everybody thought they would do, except for a few people, Big C. It's all fair in love and war. A lot of great NBA basketball tonight. I can't wait until we come up on the New York Knickerbockers. But I wanna kind of backtrack just a moment, Big C. As you talked about earlier, and the great accomplishment coming out of the Washington, D.C. for people of color, African-American history. When you think about slavery in America, Big C, slavery remains one of the greatest human rights challenges of history, Big C. Racial injustice. It's a legacy of slavery, and the Emancipation Proclamation and the 13th Amendment outlawed slavery in the United States, 1865. The 1920 fall in the American Civil War. There were hundreds of thousands of African Americans are re-enslaved in an abusive manipulation of the legal system called peonage. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, slavery has never ended in America. This is what the criminal justice system is built upon, Charlton. Free labor, lock up people and get away with it. When you think about today in America, Charlton, there are more black men in the penal system in America than there ever were in slavery.
Yeah, that's a really profound statement. Even though slavery has ended, but it's still a lot of meandering ways that things happen. Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for a crime, whereas a party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. Across the Deep South, Big C, African American men and women are falsely arrested and convicted of crimes and then leased to coal and iron mines, in brick factories, Big C, plantations, and other dangerous workplaces. The formal peonage system, it slows down after World War I, but does not fully end until the 1940s, Big C, your thoughts?
You know, you think about that. You're saying World War I, Charlton. We were well beyond slavery at that point.
Yeah.
But white society has still been in control of America, where they can enforce these unwritten rules and these illegal rules, Charlton, against black people all throughout the country.
Yeah.
And they still continuously do that today when you see the injustice in the justice system, Charlton, with an inappropriate number of black people being incarcerated versus white.
Yeah, it's been that way by design, Big C. Also, when you think about it, in recent years, activists have noted that the 13th Amendment to the United States Constitution does not outlaw prison slavery, and that requiring inmates to work in prison industry today, in 2021, it constitutes a continuing form of modern slavery, and there are more black Americans in today that are enslaved in the penal and correctional system in America that were held in bondage in America, and it's nice to bring that information to the light, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, this is what America really needs to be aware of when you talk about how black people are treated in this country when you don't have a chance. 1 in 5 black men, Charlton, in America have a criminal record. A criminal record, think about that, you know, for even crimes that really didn't mean anything.
Yeah.
But they had been found a way to label these black people, Charlton, to make them menaces to society and not able to go forth as far as earning a decent living or getting proper loans for housing.
Yeah, it's a lot of garbage that goes into the criminal justice system. That's why we need reform. And some people go kicking and screaming, saying, I'm a liberal. I believe in liberty and justice for all, but we don't need reform. That's a shame, Big C, how the doublespeak happens sometimes. But that's why I allowed Big C Sports to be created. I want to just pigtail onto that, Big C. The HBCU Sports, Tennessee State is conducting a study to test the feasibility of becoming the first historically black university to field varsity men's and women's ice hockey teams. Big C, your thoughts?
Charlton, what a great feat that will be. We need inclusion for young black people, Charlton, to cross the sports barrier other than just football and basketball and baseball. For the HBCU, Charlton, they had a potential opportunity to form men's and women's Division I hockey teams, Charlton, to be able to compete on the national scale. What if in about a decade, Charlton, if this goes through, we have a national champion in men's or women's hockey from an historical black college?
In Big C, it's not that far from happening. The university announced a study on Friday to help the NHL and the Nashville Predators and College Hockey Inc. Big C. The NHL and NHL Players Association has sponsored studies since 2017, helping the United States colleges and university work through all the details of establishing varsity hockey program. So when people say, well, how's it going to happen? It's not really possible. They've been studying this since 2017, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, with the NHL Players Association behind this, Charlton, and the league, and the NHL, they're going to make this happen.
Yeah.
It's going to be a proud day in collegiate sports, Charlton, that you'll have all black men's and women's hockey teams on the Division I level.
Let me ask you a question, though, when it comes to that. We know a lot of people, in order to learn how to do hockey, Big C, you got to have a lot of ice around. And oftentimes where a lot of young African Americans will pick up a sport that they fall in love with, it's not on the ice, Big C. It's oftentimes inside of a gym or sometimes out in a parking lot where there's a rim and a hoop. But where are they going to get the youth leagues to start where there's a lot of ice to roll around on, Big C? Your thoughts?
You have to understand, Charlton, wherever there are NHL teams, that there are youth rinks for kids to play hockey.
Yeah.
And with the Predators being there in Nashville, Charlton, not far away from Tennessee State,
yeah,
they're opening up their arms and doors, Charlton, to present this opportunity. To create ice in arena is not a difficult thing, Charlton, but with the professional leagues behind this, it is going to happen. And you'll see more and more black kids get involved in this exciting, fast sport.
Yeah, it's all fair in love and war. I wish for everyone to have the chance to experience whatever your mind can conceive. Go out and try it. All you got to do is give it a try. You don't have to like it, but just give it a try, and that's how people expand their opportunities, Big C. I want to touch on the NBA basketball universe. Again, there was an eclipse this morning, a lunar eclipse where the sun was being blocked out by the moon, and a lot of people said it wasn't really the moon blocking out the sun. It was somebody's big behind for saying that the LA Lakers were getting swept in Phoenix last night. It's all fair in love war, Big C. I wish everybody nothing but the best. I love to see people go out and compete and earn what they get, Big C. NBA basketball, when it comes to ice, skating on ice, Ice Cube talked about messing around and scoring a triple-double in one of his songs back in the day. But the great Ice Trae, he came up huge in the clutch for his first taste of NBA playoff action. And that's the game, Big C. The great Ice Trae and the Atlanta Hawks, they seek a 2-0 series lead tonight in Game 2 versus the New York Knicks. And you want to talk blankety-blank? You can keep talking blankety-blank, but the next game is going to be a lot tougher. The great Derrick Rose, though, he did not mind the Trae Young talking trash, or that Mayor Bill de Blasio was telling them good old boys to rough up Trae Young. Unfortunately, some of the guys that roam the streets, they thought he was talking to them, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, NBA action is fantastic, Charlton, and it's physical. What I'm so excited about is with the NBA right now, Charlton, there's so many young superstars where the torch is being passed in the league. And when you look at this Atlanta Hawks team, Charlton, it's full of young budding superstars, led by Trae Young. You got John Collins, who's been an all-star. You got Quinn Capella, who has been controlling the middle, Charlton. You got Bogdanovich, big-time free agent, been knocking down threes.
Yep.
So when you think about the Hawks, they're a well-rounded team, and they went into New York without any fear.
Yeah, without any fear. But do you really trust your Hawks flying around New York City and somebody not trying to take them out, Big C, especially when the mayor puts out the message that go out there and rough them up, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, everybody in New York, Charlton, will think it's just another pigeon flying around.
Just another pigeon flying around. But if that pigeon can shoot threes the way Ice Trae, Big C, the great Ice Trae, that would be a great pigeon, maybe to put on the endangered species list. But I do want to ask your thoughts. Just like you were complaining, saying that the Lakers got the benefit of the doubt with the officials, I think they just outplayed him, and Anthony Davis played like the lion in Lion King with Mufasa, Big C. He stopped being passive and trying to shoot out around the three-point perimeter, even though he knocked down a couple of threes. I didn't think there would be any way that the New York Knicks, with that home cooking and the influence of Mayor Bill de Blasio, would not be able to get to some of those referees in Madison Square Garden. There's no way, the great Jackie Gleason, that the Ice Trae can come out of New York City with a 2-0 lead tonight, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, whether they come out with it or not, they have the home court advantage now because they've already minimum got a split against the New York Knicks. And when you're a road team, that's all you ever want to get is a split.
Yeah.
And if you're not biased, Charlton, looking at that Lakers and Phoenix game last night, you know that the Phoenix Suns got jobbed in the last 5 minutes by the officials. But even with the New York Knicks and the Hawks, it was a last-second desperation shot that Trae Young was able to get off to defeat the New York Knicks.
Yeah.
And this game is going to be a nail-biter once again tonight, y'all.
Yeah, the Ice Trae may mess around and get a triple-double, the great Ice Cube. Well, Mayor Keisha Last Bottoms offers up some deep-fried chicken wings to New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio if if the Hawks come out of the Big Apple with a 2-0 lead. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I mean, you know, the mayors have been gracious towards
Yeah,
each other.
they have.
De Blasio, it just shows how much of a fan he is for his local team.
Yeah, they got to be careful mixing sports and politics. Some of our conservative friends, they don't like that when people think with two sides of their brain. It's all fair and level war. Can't wait to see that game. Big C, also, there's a lot of great jazz. And one more thing back to the New York Knicks, Big C. I remember watching a movie called The Birds. It was by Alfred Hitchcock back in the day. It was up in Morro Bay, California. And the Birds came and they kept attacking and they kept attacking and they kept attacking. And maybe the Hawks will do the same thing at Madison Square Garden tonight. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the Hawks are a bird of prey.
They are a bird of prey. And the mayor said, we're going to rough them up. It's all fair in level war. Going to roughing people up, Big C. Oftentimes, there's a little bit nicer with that Southern hospitality when it comes to roughing people up. It just means put less ice in the libation, not to break somebody's kneecaps, Big C. But the Memphis Grizzlies, they look to take down the commanding 2-0 lead against the Utah Jazz, the number 1 seed in the Western Conference. The great Donovan Mitchell, he will be back. He'll be back. The words of the great Arnold Schwarzenegger tonight, Big C. The Grizzlies have the youngest roster in the playoffs. They deserve high marks, Big C, for how the roster was built and by making the plays that the Grizzlies are making. And last I heard, the Grizzlies sound like, oh, Grizzly Bear Big C.
Well, Charlton, they were aggressive in the game against the Jazz. And
Yep.
they took it to them. They ran. And that's what young teams are doing right now, Charlton. When you see the athleticism of the younger players,
Yep.
Charlton, in the playoffs, it's going to be an exciting run throughout the playoffs. But when you look at the Memphis Grizzlies,
Yeah.
Charlton, they haven't lost a game yet in the playoffs this year.
Yeah, they've been doing their thing, and they got it done. They were able to beat San Antonio, come out to Golden State, and Draymond Green missed a 2-foot layup, didn't even hit the rim. It's all fair and level war, and then they went into Utah and took care of the Jazz. Can they keep winning is the main thing, Big C. The great Ja Morant, Jarrett Jackson. Ja Morant is a real deal. He's going to be on somebody's cereal box or maybe a Lucky Charms box in the near future, Big C. Jarrett Jackson, them good old boys are doing their thing. Desmond Clark, Desmond Bain, Xavier Tillman Jr., Dylan Brooks out of Oregon is the real deal by way of Canada. DeAnthony Melton and Giannis Valanciunas, Big C, Kyle Anderson and Tyrus Jones. But of all those guys that may appear on the Lucky Charms box, the great Ja Morant and also the great Dylan Brooks, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you think about Ja Morant, Charlton. He's last year NBA Rookie of the Year. He's the number 2 overall pick out of Murray State, and he's been an explosive player. He's one of the young, exciting guards in the NBA.
Yeah, he really is a dynamic player. And for all the people, including you, Big C, that you hate expanding playoffs, that you hate seeing teams that are deserving of competing for a championship get in because maybe they didn't have the best record, there's nobody in the universe that can say they don't like watching the great Ja Morant do his thing, Big C. It's all fair in love and war. Big C, sometimes I get hungry. And when I get hungry, I often go for the Big C burger. It is a tasty burger, and it comes with exotic meats. In Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love, the Philadelphia 76ers, they host the Washington Wizards, Big C, the Eastern Conference first round. They have a 1-0 lead in the series. The 76ers, they won the previous meeting. Big C was 125-118. It was a lot closer than some people thought. The great Tobias Harris dropped 37 points to help lead Philadelphia and the city of brotherly love to the win. The great Bradley Beal dropped 33 points for the defeat of Washington, Big C. The NBA's all-time triple-double leader takes the floor tonight, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you know, when you think about Tobias Harris, Charlton, he was the key to the Sixers' victory. I mean, he gets overlooked so often with Embiid and Simmons on the floor. He's a much better offensive player than Simmons will ever be in his career. And he's that guy, Charlton, that you always got to figure out the X factor on a team, and that's what he brings to Philadelphia 76ers.
Yeah, he brings it to the Philadelphia 76ers. And I'm going to talk a little bit more. You know, there's so much talk coming out of Los Angeles with what happened with the Los Angeles Clippers and falling to the Dallas Mavericks. Now they got to go down on the heart of the lion in Texas, where they're a lot like New York. If you're not cheating and cussing, you're really not trying, Big C. But we'll deal with that. Tyronn Lue was seen to be the answer by Ballmer, Big C. And they let the doctor go to Philadelphia, and they just happen to have the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference, Big C. Can you tell me if you feel, and again, everyone can get criticized. If you have the job, you're going to get criticized. They got rid of Doc Rivers. Maybe he was there too long, but you see, the problem wasn't Doc Rivers. And they're going to bring in Tyronn Lue. And now the problem really is the players on the floor. You can always blame a coach, but the coach is not shooting baskets. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I explained that to you last night and the night before that about these LA Clippers, is that team is not led by anything. They have a history of that, Charlton.
Yeah.
But when you think about the Clippers, in the latter part of the season when they tanked because they wanted to be able to play the Dallas Mavericks, this is just like when you're out there on the playground, Charlton, and they're having a pickup game, and you're sitting over there and you're picking players. And, no, I'll take this guy.
Yeah.
No, I'll take this guy. And that's what the Clippers did.
Yeah.
They chose not to take somebody, Charlton, and they're getting their teeth kicked in by them.
Yeah, it's all fair and level war, but it's just 2 games. Last I checked, you have to win 4 games. But back to Philadelphia and Washington, Big C. Washington, they're in a stretch right now where they have a tall mountain to climb. But it's not like they lost by double digits, Big C. And they're on the road. They got a big guy inside that really likes to eat the Philly cheesesteak. The great Joel Embiid. Big C. Simmons will do his thing, so will Curry. But I feel that every team has a shooter's chance. And I've seen this team in Washington get above 130 points a couple of times. I don't know if they can do it tonight, but they have to realize they still have their chances. Tonight might be another chance, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I think this game will go down the hill for Washington fans because all of a sudden Russell Westbrook is going to start yanking up threes, Charlton, and that's going to put his team in a deep hole.
Well, if you've ever fallen into a deep hole, Big C, you're done.
Not like that, Charlton. You fall into a deep NBA hole, not all the time you can climb out of it.
Yeah, when you fall into a deep hole, the best thing to do is try to get out of the deep hole as soon as possible, if that makes sense to you, Big C. I love the world of NBA basketball, and I love what they're doing in Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love. We will see who comes out with the biggest cheesesteak. It's all fair and level war. I want to take you to another spot. And before we get up on the Big C pause, I want to ask you, because I know everybody on the outside has all of the talk about who should play harder and who's soft and who's not soft and who's a bust and who's a bum and all that stuff. And most people saying that they couldn't even get on the court with these NBA players, Big C, from media, including us. They couldn't get on the court. So talking, they sound real tall on the radio. But if you could just tell me one thing. If you've seen these big men in the Eastern Conference, whether it's Giannis Antetokounmpo, whether it's the great Joel Embiid, or even if you look at Bam Adebayo, I think the Eastern Conference is so loaded with top physical players that maybe you don't even see out west outside of Anthony Davis and Jokic. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, no, I mean, that physical talent is across the league. Everyone has. You think about Valanciunas in Memphis, Charlton. He's the only big man in the playoffs who's had a 20-20 double-double in the playoffs. So when you talk about balance in the league, Charlton, all these guys play each other each night.
Yeah.
And they offset each other. You know, what makes you think somebody else is better than someone else is that the media is always playing them up. It's not that they outplayed anybody. It's just their media darling.
Yeah, sometimes I look at the head-to-head competition like in a boxing ring. What makes you think that one fighter is better than the other? Usually when one guy's taking a nap after the end the fight is called, it's all fair and level war, but everybody has their own opinion. We're going to take what's called the Big C pause, also known as the Big C timeout. And in the words of the great Mayor de Blasio, make sure you rough them up when they come to New York. In the words of the great Arnold Schwarzenegger, we'll be back. All right, we are back from the Big C pause, also known as the Big C timeout. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. There's so many apps that you can follow Big C Sports, and I really do appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. I want to say thank you to Xfinity, Comcast TV, and Comcast Spotlight for presenting Big C Sports to the universe. Just like God said in Genesis 1:3, let there be light. Open your cell phones and say play Big C Sports Podcast. You will see all of our apps pop up from all over the world, and I really do appreciate the way things have grown with Big C Sports. I want to touch on again that team from Los Angeles, not the defending NBA World Champions, Los Angeles Lakers, Big C, but the Clippers. I know they have a wealthy owner, but, so what? Everybody has whatever level of money they have. I know they're talking about building a brand new arena in Inglewood. That's where the Lakers had all their success. I'm not saying leave California and maybe go back to San Diego or even go up north to Seattle, Washington, or even Las Vegas. That might be a better place. Do you feel, just your opinion, that it's a good thing? Right now they're playing in the backdrop of the LA Lakers at the Staples Center, Big C. And now they want to go back to where Showtime started in Inglewood. Why not get out and start their own place as opposed to trying to marry somebody's ex-wife, if that makes sense to you, Big C? Your thoughts?
Charlton, they're not trying to do anything with the Lakers, Charlton. You play the game on the floor. That's the bottom line, whether you're at home or whether you're away. If your opponent is better than you on that night, then you're going to lose. And that's what has happened to the Clippers in the playoffs, Charlton. This is a team that I believe they've lost their last 5 playoff games. So it's not about which coach is there now, but you got the same basically playing cast is there. You got led by Leonard and George. These two guys are not compatible together in the playoffs. And they've proven that with their last 5 losses.
It's all fair level war. Maybe they'll go back to Dallas and get some of that good deep fried barbecue rib down in Texas. I hope they eat the Big C burger instead. It's all fair level war. I want to take you up to the Pacific Northwest. There's a guy by the name of Damian Lillard, Oakland, California's finest basketball prepster, in my opinion. There's a lot of good players that come out of Oakland, but Damian Lillard, he tied the great Vince Carter's all-time NBA playoffs record for 3.5 with 8, Big C, in the first half on Monday night. The great Vince Carter set the record May 11, 2001. In the second half, though, it was a different story. Lillard could not shoot the ball into the lake at times, Big C. I thought in the second half, the officiating crews up in Denver, Colorado, Big C, maybe it was too smoky. They couldn't see how many times they were fouling him, even though they thought it was just a bigger player doing his thing on him, Big C. Your thoughts?
What did you say about the Lakers game down in Phoenix? You know that everybody's going to cry periodically, Charlton, when another team is not getting the calls. I mean, the greatest guard out of Northern California, I'm going to have to go back and say that's Jason Kidd. You know, the most dominant guard to ever come out of the Northern Bay Area, Charlton. But Damian Lillard, I mean, he shot himself out in the first half, and he was only able to muster up 10 points in the second half. But when you put a bigger body with more aggression on an individual, Charlton, you can basically eliminate a lot of things that they do, and that's what they did to Damian Lillard.
Yeah, it's all fair and level. Where Jason Kidd saw him St. Joseph, Alameda, Notre Dame High School over in Alameda. But there's a lot of good players in Oakland. It's all fair and level. Where a lot of the better players, Big C, not even being flippant, some of the guys that are so dominant when they play what they play at city basketball parks, some of the best talent you'll ever see, they didn't even go to college, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you think about there's been one player, Charlton, in the state of California in the history of that. There was High School Player of the Year and never even got a Division I scholarship.
Yeah, I've seen that on playgrounds from Los Angeles to Fresno to Sacramento to Oakland and San Francisco. I've seen some guys go, how in the world is this guy not on a scholarship? And sometimes they just don't have the focus, Big C.
Jeremy Lin had the focus, Charlton. He ended up at Harvard in the Ivy League on an academic scholarship. But he won High School Player of the Year in the state of California. Not only that, won a state championship and couldn't even give a scholarship out of a Pac-10 school, Pac-12 school.
It's all fair and level where we've seen that happen many, many times. It's all fair and level where I wish everybody...
he's the only one in the history of the state. Not many, many times. He's the only one in the history of the state to be the Player of the Year in high school and win the state championship and not get a Pac-12 scholarship.
That's very well said, Big C. I want to touch on some guys that have gotten scholarships, and also they have it's nice to have the backing of your fans, Big C. It's nice to have the backing of your state. It's nice to have the backing of your coaches. But when you have the backing of your mayor threatening to go out and tell the fans to hurt people, Big C, if they come in and start that flopping garbage, Big C, I just think that's really commitment for the mayor, Bill de Blasio. It's a lot funnier than a lot of people give it credit for. But the great Julius Randle, Big C, he has the backing of Mayor Bill de Blasio, a very wealthy man, the NBA's most improved player, and the New York Knicks star. He beat out Jeremy Grant and Michael Porter Jr. to win that award. And I'm telling you, this guy's the real deal. But the Trey Ice put some ice water on him, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, Julius Randle's been a phenomenal player all year, Charlton. He was also in the MVP consideration for the great year that he had. He has the New York Knicks back in the playoffs for the first time in 8 years, and they're looking to even up the series tonight against those exciting Atlanta Hawks.
Yeah, he's looking to even up that series, and I'm sure he will get some help from the influence of the great Mayor Bill de Blasio and those officials that still want to have access to being free in New York. That's a big thing. The great Julius Randle, most improved player, 24.1 points per game, 10.2 rebounds per game, Big C, 6 assists per game, 2.3 on threes per game, Big C, 41% from threes, and those are all career highs for the great Julius Randle, Big C. Your thoughts?
You know, he's had a phenomenal season, Charlton. When you think about him being a cast-off from the Los Angeles Lakers and the New Orleans Pelicans, Charlton.
That's right.
But Tom Thibodeau has found a home for him with the New York Knicks, and he's striving for greatness now in the Big Apple.
He's doing his thing, Big C. He's the second player in NBA history to average 20, 10, and 5 on 40% shooting from 3, Big C, in the season. The great Larry Bird, who rumor has it will be roaming around Tea Gardens when the Brooklyn Nets are brave enough to show up in Boston. The great Julius Randle's son, Keaton, presented him with the MIP award during practice. It was one of those touching moments when his son, who came out onto the court and presented his dad with an award, and that's the same thing we talk about when players are told to shut up and dribble. Just shut up! Don't talk about anything other than playing the game. And men that come out and they advocate for their sons, like the great Julius Randle, and now to see his son advocating for him, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, that's the role of being a dad, that everything you do with your children is significant and important. And to be able to share that type of award with your young son, Charlton, that is a very momentous moment that you'll never forget, and he'll always cherish.
Yeah, he'll always cherish, and I really appreciate it. It was really touching to see that. It's all fair in love and war, Big C. I want to spend a little bit of time on also touching. I noticed this on Pac-12 players that are told, put your pads on those boys when they come out from the South. UCLA is getting ready to take out the LSU Tigers, even though they're a Bengal Tiger, whatever they are, they're going to get taken up by the Bruins. But college football, Big C, it's all about bragging rights. It's the biggest non-conference game of 2021, and people have their own opinions. We've missed out a lot on an elite non-conference games in 2020, Big C. So there's even more excitement that's going to get them back as part of our college football experience. And I want to bring up a couple of games that I've identified. More than a dozen of the best non-conference showdowns, starting with a loaded opening weekend of equally intriguing Week 2, Big C. And again, it's just my opinion, and everybody has their own flavor. I know the SEC, sometimes they look forward to opening up against schools like the Citadel or schools like North Carolina A&T. It's all fair and love and war. But Clemson versus Georgia in Charlotte, September 4, Big C, that's big versus big, Big C. Your thoughts?
Charlton, that's going to be an electrifying game. You're going to see 2 California quarterbacks playing in that game, Charlton. But, you know, Georgia is one of those teams that's noted for defense. Clemson should have one of the top 5 defenses in the country, and they're just coming fresh off a loss in the college football playoff. JT
Daniels at Georgia came out of Mater Dei High School in Southern California. DJ Uiagalelei came out of St. John Bosco High School in Southern California. They're in the same league with Mater Dei, and now they're taking their action to the Deep South. It's all fair in level war. Number 2, Alabama versus the U, Big C, University of Miami. The Hurricanes, that game will be in Atlanta. It's on September 4th. Miami is loaded with talent, but sometimes when you play Alabama, it just doesn't matter, Big C. Your thoughts?
You can be loaded with talent, but Alabama is nothing but talent, Charlton. The defending national champs are looking to kickstart their run to a second consecutive national championship.
It's all fair in love and war. Also, when you bring the South out to California, finally, we get you guys on our territory, Big C, with our own referees, the LSU Fighting Bengals, or whatever they call the Bengal Tigers. They will play at the Rose Bowl, the granddaddy of them all, against UCLA Fight. And Chip Kelly is bringing back Ed Ogeron. They used to play against each other out here in the Pac-12, Big C. It's a big game. It's SEC versus Pac-12. It would be the first time in a long time since USC shut out Auburn at Jordan-Hare Stadium in 23-0. And Auburn went on to win the SEC that year that USC shut them out. I think it was 2004. It may not be a shutout, but UCLA is going to jump all over LSU, Big C. Your thoughts?
Charlton, this will be the smallest crowd that LSU plays in front of all year, Charlton. But they won't have any problem out there on the West Coast. The only thing they got to worry about is tripping all over those casino chips that they're going to lay out there on the field for the UCLA Bruins.
You're going to see the benefit of having casino chips, Big C, bringing those boys out of Southern California as the Bruins will take down the Tigers. Also, LSU is a great team. UCLA is a great team. Look forward to that. Louisiana, they're going to play at Texas September 4th. I think Texas has expanded their stadium, and I think they're upwards of 110,000 people now, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, that burnt orange down there, Charlton, in Austin will be rolling. They got Steve Sarkisian, a new head coach. They're hoping to finally, Charlton, get back into the top 10 rankings.
They're trying to get back into the top 10 rankings. A team that's always in the top 10 rankings. You have Notre Dame, the Fighting Irish, Big C. They will play at the Florida State Seminoles. This isn't Bobby Bowden's Florida State Seminoles, so it's a good game geographically, Midwest versus the South, Big C, but it's probably a game that Notre Dame, unless it's very humid, should get the win, Big C. Your thoughts?
This is a throwback to the 90s to matchups, Charlton, when Notre Dame and Florida State would play each other. Notre Dame is looking to start a new quarterback this year after getting embarrassed in the college football playoffs last year, Charlton. Florida State is just trying to rebuild.
Trying to rebuild, Big C. Wide right! Wide right again? What if it comes out to wide right, Big C? It's all fair in Leavenworth. You have the battle of the libation, Big C. You have Ole Miss. They're playing Louisville. That game's going to be down in Atlanta. And last I heard, all the chicken wings will be sold out for that game, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, no, you think about that offense that Lane Kiffin has put together down there at Mississippi, Charlton.
Yeah.
They are electrifying, the second highest scoring offense in the SEC. Louisville has a young, outstanding quarterback in Armstrong who can make big electrifying plays. This game should be full of electricity.
It should be full of electricity. Last time I saw Ole Miss play, they were getting beat by Cal Berkeley down at Ole Miss. It's all fair in Leavenworth. They decided to stay east of the Mississippi River. Big C, number 7, Oregon, the Ducks at the Ohio State Buckeyes. We know the Buckeye is a nut. This is a big game. It's going to be in the Horseshoe, Big C. It's September the 11th. It's going to be a very emotional day for our country, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, you know the Ducks like to eat a lot of seeds and everything, but also they'll get roasted by these Buckeyes.
Last I heard, a duck loves to feast on a nut, Big C, and a Buckeye is a nut. I'm sure the Ducks will be feasting on nuts all day long. It's all fair and level war. A game that should happen, it should happen every year. Iowa, they're going to play at Iowa State, Big C, the marquee programs in Iowa. And Iowa State, they've been creeping up, having a better program than the University of Iowa, but Iowa has that great tribute that they do to that hospital for those kids who are dealing with issues. This is a great game for the Midwest, Big C. Your thoughts?
You know, Iowa State is a much improved program there, Charlton. I mean, they were one game away from winning the Big 12 championship. Iowa is a team that's coming out of a lot of turmoil last year, but to have these two universities play each other, Charlton, where a lot of the kids grew up playing against each other in high school, it's going to be great to play against each other in college.
It's going to be great seeing Big C all fair level. Washington, out of the great Northwest, the Huskies, Big C, they're going to be playing at the Michigan Wolverines in the great Who's Got It Better Than Us, the great Jim Harbaugh. That game is also going to take place on September 11th. It's Pac-12 versus Big Ten. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, this is a game normally you'd like to see in the Rose Bowl, but it's an early season game this coming college football season, Charlton. This is a game that most likely will decide whether Jim Harbaugh stays around or not.
Washington University's last national championship, I believe it was 1990. It was Steve Entman's team, and they beat the Michigan Wolverines in the Rose Bowl. Now they'll do it at Michigan. Big C, September 11th is a big date. Think about this other game coming up. It's a big game for the Wasatch Mountains, Big C. We talk about the Utah Jazz, but now we got to talk about the University of Utah. They're going to be playing at BYU, still an independent. Utah out of the Pac-12, BYU and independent. It's also September 11th. Should be a great interstate game, Big C. Your thoughts?
BYU, Charlton, has always been one of those teams with a prolific offense. Utah is the team that's going to win the Pac-12 championship this year, Charlton. And so this will be an interesting in-state game.
Yeah, not so fast, my friend. I don't think they'll win the Pac-12 championship, but they should have a good team. There's a big game coming up in the SEC versus the Big Ten, the University of Auburn, Big C, the Tigers, versus the Penn State Nittany Lions. Now, I'm kind of confused because last I checked, Auburn's mascot is called the Auburn Tigers, but they call War Eagle. Either way, the Nittany Lions, they eat both. They eat mascots and War Eagles, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, this is going to be a very interesting game. When you think about the slow start that Penn State got off to last year, Charlton, I see Penn State starting this season potentially 0-3, 1-4, Charlton, to start off. So Auburn potentially can get this win at home.
Auburn Tiger, War Eagle is all fan level war. A game that I really used to love watching when you had the great Barry Switzer, Big C, on the Oklahoma sideline, the great Tom Osborne on the Nebraska sideline, and now they're in a different conference. It should go back to where they're in the same conference. but sometimes that's politics, Big C. Nebraska at Oklahoma, Big C. This is a big on big, at least Midwest style. And Oklahoma's had their number lately, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, this is big on little, basically, what it is. When you got Spencer Rattler spinning the ball for the Oklahoma Sooners, Charlton, he's going to be a top 5 Heisman candidate coming into the season, and he's going to show his wares against the Nebraska UC Cornhuskers.
It used to be Go Big Red, and they used to call them the black team, Big C, when they were the black. The Cornhuskers is a great place to watch a football game, and they're doing this down in Norman in Oklahoma. It's always a great crowd, a great environment for those two schools. September 18th, we have the Wisconsin Badgers. They will take on the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. This is Midwest versus Midwest. Wisconsin's one of those programs that if they did not have to play in Ohio State every year, they would probably have won more championships, Big C. Your thoughts?
Wisconsin has an outstanding sophomore quarterback, Charlton, that's going to light up the Fighting Irish. He was injured last year in that shortened season that the Big Ten had, but he's going to come back healthy this year, Charlton, and he potentially will be the top quarterback in the Big Ten Conference.
It's all fair level war. Them fighting words coming to talking about Notre Dame. That game's going to be played in the Windy City of Chicago, Illinois. It's all fair level war. Big C, another team that's climbing that mountain. You have the Cincinnati Bearcats, Big C. They're also going to play at Notre Dame. Notre Dame's taking everybody's best, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, here's Notre Dame play anybody on any day, Charlton, and that's what they're doing. They're not ducking anybody. So when it comes down to the end of the year and they start talking about bowl games and potential playoff first, Charlton, if the Fighting Irish can get through unscathed or even with one loss on the regular season, you're going to have to seriously give them some contention for the college football playoff.
Yeah, you got it. And if I hit all the 6 numbers in the lottery tonight, I'll have about $200 million is all fair at level war, Big C, that Powerball. Speaking of a Powerball, you got to have power running football. You have North Carolina. They're also taking on Notre Dame, and Notre Dame's taking everybody's best. It's not like they're back in the days of the great Lou Holtz. The last time that this great university won a national championship, it was when Notre Dame under Lou Holtz. They beat the West Virginia Mountaineers with Major Harris at quarterback, Big C. It was 1988. Is Notre Dame ever going to get back to winning another one, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, when you think about all the great quarterbacks that Notre Dame is going to face this season, Charlton, this is another one. It's Sam Howell from North Carolina. He's in the top 5 Heisman race also. This young true junior, Charlton, at North Carolina that Mack Brown has brought in, has been the best quarterback in his class ever since he's been in college football.
Yeah, they have a great program at Notre Dame. Mack Brown's been doing his thing over at North Carolina. It's all fair and level war, Big C. And I love the sports universe. Made all the teams play great tonight. But Big C, last I heard, the pitch hit deep. Right field, back to the wall, home run. The home run, as the baseball loves the home run ball. They say girls love the home run ball and men love hitting the home run ball. Major League Baseball universe. A lot of good games going on tonight, and I really look forward to what's happening on the mound of Major League Baseball. Big C, I want to get your thoughts on a few things. The 3 red-hot hitters driving Major League Baseball's offensive youth movement in 2020 amid the 2021 Major League Baseball season, Big C, marked by historic offensive fragility. There's actually some intriguing overlap between the league's best hitters and also its youngest hitters, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when we think about baseball, I mean, this is a game where next man up is delivering. And we think about a lot of the young, bright superstars that have come along in baseball in the past couple of years. Baseball right now has a real bright future.
Yeah, it has a really bright future. The pitch hit deep, right field, back to the wall, a home run. You're going to hear that a lot this year, Big C. Many other explanations for this historic occasion. There's no better place to start than with the 20-somethings who ranked first. They ranked 5th and 12th among all hitters this year, Big C. And when you think about it, the great Vladimir Guerrero, the junior, 198. Fernando Tatis, amazing player, 189. And the Ronald Acuna Jr. I know Tatis is a great hitter, and I know Guerrero's a great hitter, but that's something about the swagger of Ronald Acuna Jr. It's amazing watching these guys come up and hit the bat, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, it's exciting, and especially with Vlad Jr. I mean, here's a guy who grew up watching his dad, win in Major League, Charlton.
Yeah.
Not only that, I remember when he was a kid, and he carried his dad's bat when he was in the home run derby and won it. So this is an exciting time for him to live in the footsteps of his dad and hold up that family legacy.
It really is a legacy that they carried on. Where the 23-year-old Acuna and the 22-year-old Tatis are concerned, it's really fair not to be surprised in their stellar performances. Big C. Acuna was a National League Rookie of the Year in 2018. He and Tatis have 3 Silver Sluggers and 2 top 5 MVP finishes between them, Big C. The 22-year-old Guerrero, however, is a different story. As a son of a revered, he was a very revered, Big C, Hall of Famer and the game's #1 prospect. At the time, as you mentioned, the great Guerrero, he was saddened with great expectations. A lot of people expecting to be as good as his dad when he debuted for the Toronto Blue Jays. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, that's a huge burden on any young player when you come into the league and to have your dad to be a perennial All-Star, Hall of Famer, and you have to live up to that legacy, Charlton. But the pressure hasn't been too big for Vlad Jr. because he's delivered.
He's delivered in a big way, Big C. He's hitting .333, also .433 when you think about it, and .661 with 15 home runs, precisely where there's a check marks for all 3 boxes. When you think about for Acuna's part, he's .276, and then .380 and .622 his line. 16 home runs have a lot to do with the progress he's made with his own disciple, Big C. He's swinging at 16.5% for the pitches he's seen outside the strike zone, which has helped him pave the way for a career high .7 walk to strikeout ratio, which is amazing, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you know, he's an outstanding all-around player, Charlton. He has the speed, he has the power, he has the savvy, and he really understands his game at a young age. The game hasn't grown too fast for him, Charlton. Not only that, Atlanta locked him up in the offseason with a 10-year extension.
Yep, that means they're bright. They're really bright, and that good old boy, he reminds me of Hammer and Hank. When he comes to the plate, it's just a matter of time before he reaches his milestones. At the same time, in fairness to the great Tatis, Big C, separate stints on the injured list for a left shoulder, it should heal, and had a positive COVID-19 test. Haven't made it easy for him to get into a rhythm in the 30 games he's played. To the boot, the former event even necessitated a change in his swinging mechanics, which is very, very hard to do, judging by his .307, .380, and .711 line and 13 homers. That's an adjustment that he's been able to make when it counts the most, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, he's out there trying to keep the Padres competitive on the West Coast. This is a player who's been a perennial all-star throughout his career. He has that huge off-season contract that he got with the Padres.
Yep.
He's going to be a leader out there for that team for the next decade.
Yeah, he's going to be a leader for the next decade, and obviously they're going to be in contention as they're playing in the National League West. You got, of course, the defending world champion Los Angeles Dodgers, and also the San Francisco Giants are doing their thing. I want to also touch on something that's going on in the world of Major League Baseball. Joe West set a Major League Baseball record Tuesday, Big C, umpiring his 5,376 regular season game, appearing behind the plate as the Chicago White Sox. They hosted the St. Louis Cardinals. The 68-year-old surpassed the Hall of Fame umpire Bill Clem, Big C, who had a record that stood since 1941. To celebrate, he brought 116 tickets for family and friends, according to a lot of media reports, Big C, Wnba Major League Baseball officials. Among West's guests was a San Diego Chicken, who luckily didn't end up in the deep fryer. Big C is all fair and aboard the San Diego Chicken, who presented him with flowers in the 6th inning after the game was ruled official. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, you think about Joe West eclipsing this record, the most games ever umped in MLB history, Charlton, and not one home game in that whole stretch.
Yeah.
You think about every game that he goes out, he's one of the most hated people on the field, Charlton. He's never cheered for by the fans. He's booed, he's cheered all the time. But he's been professional for thousands and thousands of games in Major League, in regular season, playoffs, and World Series.
Yeah, he's been doing his thing. That's a long time in his profession, Big C. On the resume are Willie McCovey's 500th home run in 1978, the great Nolan Ryan's 5th no-hitter in 1981, the great Felix Hernandez's perfect game in 2012, the great Albert Pujols still doing his thing for the LA Dodgers, 400th home run in 2013. He's the longest tenured umpire, having covered the National League for 23 seasons before adding American League games to his repertoire in 2002. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, just an outstanding and distinguished career, Charlton. Everybody wants longevity in whatever they do.
Yeah.
Joe West came into the Major League, Charlton, in 1972. So you think about all of what he's seen and all the greatness he's been surrounded by.
Yeah, he's seen it all, Big C. He's done it all, and he's really rised and shined every single day of his pro career as all fair and level war. Major League Baseball history, the Pittsburgh Pirates, the pitcher Harvey Haddix, Big C, threw 12 perfect innings. 62 years ago today, May 26, 1959, he would lose the game on a walk-off home run, Big C. That would be ruled a double as batsman Joe Adcock passed Henry Harris on the base path in the 13th inning. Maybe they were too tired to understand who should score first, Big C. Your thoughts?
Charlton, this is one of those things in Major League history in the Hall of Fame that should have that asterisk by it. You throw 12 perfect innings in baseball. We know that pitchers today, and Bumgarner went 7 perfect innings and didn't get credit for it with the Diamondbacks earlier this year. But you think about doing 12 perfect innings in a baseball game and not getting credited with anything, not even getting credited with the win. How disgusting can that be? But baseball needs to have a special award just for that feat.
Yeah, they really should. Tonight's baseball schedule, Wednesday, May 26th, Big C, Baltimore Orioles at Minnesota Twins, St. Louis Cardinals at the Chicago White Sox, Seattle at the Oakland A's. You have Texas at the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, Chicago Cubs at Pittsburgh, Big C, Philadelphia at the Miami Marlins, the Cincinnati Reds, they're at Washington, the Nationals. The Cleveland Indians are at the Detroit Tigers. Kansas City, they're at Tampa Bay, Big C. Atlanta, as we talked about earlier, they're up in Boston and Beantown. The defending world champion Los Angeles Dodgers, they're down in Houston trying to put out those flash bulbs and tape recordings that they've been finding of all the communication that goes on in Houston. San Diego, they're at Milwaukee. San Francisco Giants at the Arizona Diamondbacks. Toronto Blue Jays at the New York Yankees. And the Colorado Rockies at the New York Mets. Those 2 games have been postponed so the Yankees and the Mets can watch the Knicks. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, it's an exciting time in New York when you think about you got the Islanders playing.
Yep.
You got the Mets playing. You got the Knicks playing. So, baseball is taking a second fiddle right now to those other major sports.
Yeah, they all showed up conspicuously. They all had a headache or a hangover because they wanted to see the Knicks. And maybe they were just listening to the call of Mayor de Blasio said, next time rough them up if that makes sense to you. Maybe there'll be a couple of other baseball teams on the court with the NBA's finest New York Knicks. Big C, NFL football, where nobody tries to rough anybody up, Big C, and everybody's fair, and no one ever uses a profanity in the world of the NFL, Big C. The great Adam Vinatieri, he retires from the NFL after 24 seasons with the New England Patriots. When you think about how great he's been kicking in the snow or even the humidity, Big C. Also with the Indianapolis Colts, where he's kicking inside the dome, earning $51.1 million for his Hall of Fame worthy efforts. He's the second highest earning kicker in the history of the NFL, only behind Sebastian Janikowski that played for the Raiders out of Florida State. He was Al Davis' last number 1 draft pick. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when you think about Vinatieri, this was an unsung kicker that came to New England as a free agent. This guy actually won 3 Super Bowls, and I don't know why he does not have a Super Bowl MVP from the Patriots. They gave him to your buddy Tom Brady, and yet he kicked the game-winning field goal on 3 occasions
to
propel the Patriots to Super Bowl victory.
Yeah, that's right. Sometimes kickers don't get respect. They're like the great Rodney Dangerfield. They get no respect, Big C. It's all fair and love and war. But when you think about his resume, it speaks for itself. Number 1 scorer in NFL history. When you think about that, 4-time Super Bowl champion, 3-time All-Pro, Big C, 3-time Pro Bowler. Next stop, last I heard, there's a rumor called the Canton, Ohio. It's called a Hall of Fame, Big C. Your thoughts?
Oh, they're polishing a bus for him right now. But you think about Vinatieri, his career did not end the way that he wanted to. Injury plagued in Indianapolis. But to go down as the NFL's all-time leading scorer, Charlton, that's a record that may not be broken with the longevity of his career.
Yeah, it may not be broken with the longevity of his career. We talk about the $50+ million that he's made in his career for helping the New England Patriots win Super Bowls and also helping Indianapolis win a couple of big games along the way. The Green Bay Packers, they sent an email. You know how a lot of kids will text? They don't even pick up the phone now. They'll just text you, Big C. Sometimes you don't hear the text, but you hear the phone ringing several times. A text doesn't ring several times, but they sent the great Aaron Rodgers an email to Aaron Rodgers, touchdown Aaron Rodgers. Over the weekend, you have a $500,000 workout bonus, Aaron. Response, keep the change. Aaron Rodgers is living up this dream in Hawaii, Big C. Your thoughts?
You know, Aaron's loving life, Charlton. With $500,000 means nothing to you, that I'm going to go get myself a suntan and play golf, I'm good.
Yeah, he's good. It's all fair level war. Hopefully he will come to his senses and realize that $500,000, he could donate that to the United Negro College Fund or the HBCUs. It's all fair and level war. Can't tell a man what to do with his money, but I guess he doesn't need it if he doesn't answer the phone for $500,000. Tonight's Wnba schedule, we love supporting the women, Big C, Las Vegas. They're at Phoenix, and hopefully they've dried up all the teardrops on the Phoenix Suns floor after the Lakers came in and splashed out the sun last night. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, hopefully they'll get a different set of officials tonight for the Phoenix Suns.
Yeah, it's all fair and level war. I really do appreciate everything that goes on in the world of sports, and I know everybody has to do whatever they can to be healthy, wealthy, and wise, to keep your mind right, as the great Beast Mode said, keep your mentals together, staying focused. I really appreciate the NBA running that scroll across the game last night for mental health, and a lot of people need to pay attention to mental health. And Big C, I'm proud of you for even starting that just a couple of years ago, about 3 years ago now, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when you're concerned about mankind and what goes on with people, when you've recognized mental illness amongst friends and family, Charlton, and knowing the devastation that it will bring, it's nothing to be proud of, Charlton. It's what you should do as an individual, showing compassion.
Showing compassion. Our country can use a lot of compassion. It can use a lot of everything that makes the world a better place, and I really love appreciating everybody that's done anything to not just talk about needing change, but also actually being able to create change. Northwest Ordinance, Big C, Black History 1787, in addition to laying out the procedure for future states to be created in Western territories, the Northwest Ordinance forbade slavery in the Northwest Territory, where the future states of Michigan would be created. And you can look at that. You can Google that information on African American history. It's all fair and level war. I wish everybody nothing but the best. If you are the Atlanta Hawks, if you're flying around New York City tonight, be wary of those rats, because sometimes I've heard they're pretty good with a baseball bat. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, yeah, I mean, being in New York, Charlton, is always a nerve-shattering experience walking up and down the street, regardless of whoever you are.
Yeah, when you got rats that can fly, they carry baseball bats. Be careful with Trae Young. It's all fair and level war. Ice Trae. Big C, back in the day, there's a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, float like a butterfly and sting like a bee. Rumble, young man, rumble. With all you've got to use, how can you lose? Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, New York Mayor Bill de Blasio came out trying to make Trae Young the #1 villain towards New York Knicks fans, Charlton, but I don't know if he's been around long enough to understand that he couldn't even get into the top 3. When you think about the top 3 villains all time to New York Knicks fans, you got to put Reggie Miller right there, along with Michael Jordan and owner James Dolan, Charlton.
Yeah.
Once again, I want to thank our frontline healthcare workers, our nurses, doctors, and first responders. They're there to take care of all of those villains, Charlton, regardless of how bad they get beat down.
Yeah. It just like the former Orange Man said, if you beat them up, he'll pay your legal fees. Make sure de Blasio pays your legal fees if you're going to follow his orders. It's all fair and level war. You can follow all fair and level war every Monday through Friday when you rise and shine. You can rise and shine every Monday through Friday at 5 to 6 p.m. worldwide when you follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Bill de Blasio and them good old boys from down south. As my mama always says, there's never ever an excuse for racism or domestic violence. If you know any man, woman, or child going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and ask for help, because no man, woman, or child should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.